Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag. I am Garrett Bahana. Alongside me are my two really on-the-ropes co-hosts right now, Robbie Noggle and Snail. Really, before we started recording this episode, as we record in the evening of October 16th, earlier in the day, I was sent some very derogatory messages on X, Twitter, whatever it is. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can obviously see our reactions to this. But I want you to know that effective immediately, I am hereby relieving Robbie and Snail of their duties. I wanted, as Robbie gives you the salute, I wanted to make sure that I got this while we were recording. They have crossed the line far too many times. They have insulted me. They have insulted my family. I'm kidding. Of course, it is all in jest. However, what is not in jest is the fact that I eat all of my steak well done, and that will not change. That will not change for me. And you can continue to insult me. And Bryan, I know Bryan is going to listen to this episode on Tuesday when it goes live. He was responding with Robbie and Snail in that reply chain that we had started on Twitter. I will continue to eat all of my burgers and steak well done. You cannot change the DNA inside of me. But, as we continue this war of words between the three of us, we have some questions that we are going to answer sent in by some lovely listeners. The majority of the questions this week do come from Bryan. So once again, thank you, Bryan, for giving us some content to work with as we are still in the early weeks of the NHL season. Let's get it underway here. Robbie will take question number 1. Snail will take question number 2. I will take question 3, and we will rotate until part 1 is complete. Question number 1, Robbie, comes from Bryan. John Buccigross said he wanted to see Ovechkin break the all-time goal record, which is going to happen, Bryan believes, but Buccigross also wanted to see Sidney Crosby hit the 2,000-point mark. For that to happen, Crosby will need to average 71 points for 7 more seasons, which would put him at age 43. How likely do you think Sidney Crosby hits the 2,000-point mark for his career?
So far be it for me to be someone that doubts Sidney Crosby and his ability to do anything on a hockey rink. I crunched the numbers and I was looking at 71 points. What sticks with me is he shows no signs of slowing down at the moment. And if he can stack points the next 2 or 3 seasons, let's say he goes 85 average the next 3 seasons. That's just throwing a number out there. Anything to lower the back end of what he would need in a season, I can't say it's impossible. I would put it at, I would say the odds are below 50%. 2,000, that's a lot. That's a lot of points in today's NHL. This isn't the 80s and 90s where they were posting, Mario was posting 200-point seasons, Gretzky was posting 200-point seasons. I'm gonna put it, it's not as good odds as Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record, which I'm not sold that record gets broken. I think it's probably over 50%, but all you need is one bad season. All you need at his age, all you need is one injury that knocks you out 20 or 30 games in a season. And all of a sudden that record that looked reachable is all of a sudden just that much farther away. I'm of the belief that if Ovechkin gets close enough, he's going to play until he gets it, unless he physically cannot play anymore. But I think I put the odds of Crosby getting 2,000 just because he'd have to play until 43 at that pace. But if he can average 85 the next 3 seasons just to knock that back end average down, I would not put it out of the possibility. And even if we look back at this at the end of the season, if he hits 100 this season, that's 30 points over what he would need, that 71 average. We refigure and we talk at the end of the season and maybe that number is completely different. So right now it's just the play to 43 kind of thing for me. I'm not one to fully doubt Sidney Crosby doing anything, but does he reach 2,000? I would lean toward no, But Bryan asked me again in April, and we'll reevaluate after we see what Crosby posts this season.
Do you think that if like whether Sitter, do you think McDavid could get 2,000 in his career?
Yeah, I mean, not that he's going to post 100, 150 points every year, but if he's posting 120, 130 every season, I mean, he could easily get there. He's not going to get to Gretzky's all-time total, but I could easily see him getting 2,000. Especially if Edmonton would take a slide back, like something happened to Draisaitl, because so many of his points come with Draisaitl on the ice. If he doesn't have that weapon, okay, maybe he slides back a little bit, but at his current pace, I think he can get it done given health and the team he's working with right now. All right, question number 2, again from Bryan here, and we're going to Snail for this one. I wanted to follow up on the weirdest thing for breakfast question that Bryan asked last week. Bryan said he once had bratwurst for breakfast. He said he fired up his grill at 8 a.m., threw 3 of those bad boys on. Also, that pizza that Snail mentioned in our last episode, our last mailbag, Bryan said that he agrees with all of us that it sounded amazing and kind of like the kinds pies and pints offers that Bryan mentioned in the past.
Robbie, I don't think you were on for the pies and pints.
No, that's I was hoping one of you at least recalled it, but yeah. So,
do you have any familiarity with said establishment?
I do not.
You don't. Okay. Was that the one, Garrett? Did he say that was the one that was in like Virginia?
Was it in Morgantown? What, like Morgantown, West Virginia?
Was there? I feel like that was the one where it was like. Was that the one that was in like? I want to say like Virginia or like Maryland or something.
That sounds right. I'd have to go back and look off the top of my head. I don't know. I can't remember. But that sounds like accurate.
Well, let's see. He fired up 3 bratwursts at 8 a.m. one time. I mean, a bratwurst. What's the difference between like a bratwurst and a breakfast sausage? Right?
I really like.
That's a good question.
Have you if you guys have seen like the full English breakfasts and stuff like that, like
yeah.
I mean,
no.
I don't think. Oh, Google full English breakfast.
It's massive.
Oh, it's
full English breakfast.
Yeah, type in a full English breakfast. It's even for me like that would be like a really heavy breakfast if I'm. Yeah, that's a lot. But
why is there beans?
That's an English staple.
It's Britain. Don't ask the question. I just said just Google the. Well, I just said so you can know what we're working with. I'm going to explain everything.
Are those just big tomatoes?
Yeah.
Baked tomatoes.
So hold on a second. This is a plate for breakfast. This is 2,500 calories, by the way. It looks like baked beans.
Yeah. Baked beans.
2 medium sized. They look like your average greenhouse tomatoes with potentially what like roasted, maybe full though. They're like a full tomato.
Yeah,
we've got 2 like poached eggs or
some kind of egg. Yeah,
some sort of egg. I think those look like 2 blood sausages or something.
They might. Well, there's definitely blood pudding.
Yes, that's what it's. Yeah.
And then is that there's like in this picture I'm looking at, it looks like there's half a piece of toast, some bacon, some sort of hockey puck looking black disc. Maybe it's just burnt.
That's blood pudding.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Blood pudding.
Made of sheep blood. Yep.
And then what is the Brussels sprouts? Maybe
those are probably mushrooms.
Oh, mushrooms maybe.
Maybe they are. Yeah.
Maybe those are mushrooms. Some sort of charred vegetation of some sort. Dude, blood pudding.
Yeah, that's its own.
It's an English delicacy over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could. I mean, my parents were over there in 2019, and they had a full English, without the blood, just because they weren't. But I don't know if I could do. I'd maybe try it, but I don't know. If I could get over the blood thing, I'd be fine. It's just the mental block of eating what is essentially vulcanized blood.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough look for Britain. That's what they eat for breakfast.
Well,
Like,
sometimes it's
no
just
wonder we dipped out of there and started the 13 colonies.
sometimes it's just beans on toast.
I saw a meme one time, and I can't get over it. They were roasting, the meme was roasting Britain, and it was like Britain is still eating like they're hunkering in the subways during World War II.
Yeah.
And like all these years later, they are still eating the same food that they were eating in World War II. And like that was the gist of the meme. I thought it was hilarious.
That is
'Cause they are.
hilarious. I'm all
Beans
for
on
clowning
toast.
on Britain.
I'm for clowning on Britain as well, but
We do have a
So-
listener. We do have a listener from England, at least one, Tony Gale,
Yeah.
who asked a question last week. So we
Yeah.
don't want to scare off our lovely
Tony,
listeners.
listen to this episode and explain this bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, Tony, explain like whether you're in favor of the English, like maybe he hates the English. Maybe he's like, oh, the
He could.
English breakfast is embarrassing. Like there are things in the U.S. that I'm like, yeah, that's embarrassing. Like that's
Yeah,
some shit
fair.
that like
There's
you know,
no way like they eat this every day. Like
No,
there's no
you
way.
couldn't.
there's some mutant out there that does though.
Yeah, he probably sits down every morning, goes to the little pub, has a thing of
Pint of
whatever.
Guinness.
Nah, it's Irish, but Carlsberg or Newcastle brown ale, and hammers down an English breakfast at 8 a.m. every morning or whatever however they do time over there.
With a brown ale, that just my stomach like cramps just at the thought of that. That is so heavy.
Okay, getting back to the bratwurst part of this question.
Yeah,
I
sorry,
think
that
we've
was a nice
deter- I think-
tangent.
I think we've determined that that's not that weird, but it's bratwurst is just like a German sausage, basically.
Right. It's. I mean, what? That's heavy. 3 of them for breakfast. that's heavy.
Three would be heavy. Yes.
So honestly, not all that weird, Brian. You're safe from our ridicule. Britain bore the brunt of that one.
Britain is
Yeah.
not safe from the ridicule.
I mean, I like bratwurst, so I can't. I mean, I wouldn't want to hammer down 3 at 8 a.m. That's
I
like
could never.
borderline serial killer
Well,
behavior. but,
Robbie, in what condition would you have to be in the mood to hammer down 3 brats at 8 in the morning?
One, I'd have to be in college at a tailgate.
There you
There
go.
was.
Okay.
I mean, I've had hot dogs and stuff like that for tailgates at football games in the morning. I'd have to be either hungover or at least enjoying some early morning bevs to pound down that much. Not like if I was like just hungry in the morning, I'm like, man, I could really go for a bratwurst. I wouldn't be anti that. I wouldn't need any special like mental state, but like if I was going for 3 and like throwing on the grill and shit, I'm gonna need some lubrication to help.
Let's hit him with the truth. You'd have to be slightly greased to
Yeah.
hammer down 3 brats.
3 is pretty intense. And Brian, my question to you this week is, what was the situation in terms of your sobriety state when you decided to wake up at 8 a.m. and toss 3 brats on the grill? Because that's kind of psycho behavior.
Did you
even
have the
for a
pin
sober
down,
person.
Brian? Did you have the pin down? All right, let's move on. Question 3 coming from Brian. Do you think they should move DOC up to play with Sid and Raquel and put Jake with Gino and Smith? That'll free up Rust to play in the bottom 6 and hopefully boost some offense.
I almost forgot this was a hockey podcast at one point. We had spent so much time talking about food and English breakfasts, but I actually like this idea because if you want to draw one conclusion through the first couple of games of the season, my conclusion would be that the bottom 6 we kind of thought this going into the season, but the bottom 6 doesn't look like it may help you out too much offensively this season. They have good defensive impacts, and it could really help you on the penalty kill. But if you can, at least in the short term, maybe move some of that offense a la Bryan Rust, as Brian mentions here, if you can move it down to the third line and maybe give some of that offense to the top 9/bottom 6, I would be in favor of that. I think at some point you're going to see, not to get too overreactive here through the first less than 5 games, I think eventually you're going to see Kyle Dubas come to the realization, if he hasn't already, that this team needs more offense, and you can't rely on Crosby and Malkin and company to continue to put in these offensive performances night in and night out. It was great against Calgary to see them come back and storm back in the third period, and Evgeny Malkin is off to a tremendous start to begin the season, but I don't think you can reasonably expect that pace to continue. So moving DOC up with Crosby, we saw some of that early success in the preseason. I think you can carry that over to some extent as the early part of the regular season gets underway. But this is eventually this is going to be a situation where you're trying to put a Band-Aid over a massive gash, and it's just not going to work. I think eventually Dubas is going to have to go out, whether it's through waivers or trade at the trade deadline. And I don't want to talk about the trade deadline while we're in the middle of October, but I think eventually, if you are in the position to make a serious run, you can do that by going out and hitting another sort of offensive home run. Maybe not to the level of Erik Karlsson, but just enough of a home run to where your bottom six is going to give you something of an offensive pulse, so you don't have to rely on Crosby and Malkin and company every night. Question number 4, as we go back to Robbie here, question 4 comes from Brian. If it's Mike Sullivan and company's main objective to put the 12 best players on the ice to create the most competitive team, why is Jeff Carter still seeing ice time?
So if you listen to our recap episode from Saturday night where we talked about the Capitals and Flames game, Snail and I kind of went on a little rantish kind of segment about this, basically this very same question.
We tried not to.
Yeah, but yeah, Snail was like, I'm going to be happy about it. I'm like, screw that. We're talking about Jeff Carter. So, I mean, you knew this was happening. You knew this was going to happen. Why is he there? Because he's untradeable, and putting him on waivers is not a possibility. Buying him out does nothing. Basically, he is there whether we like it or not. The problem with it is that roster spot is being taken up by a 37, 38-year-old, barely mobile statue that could be easily used by a Vinny Hinostroza, a Radim Zohorna, a Alex Nylander. Literally anything would be better. It might be better putting a seventh defenseman on the ice and playing him at a wing. Like, get Mark Friedman out there to be a psychopath for 8 minutes a night.
Pull Colby Armstrong out of the booth.
Play with 22 men or 17 men. Let Nedeljkovic go out and skate 8 minutes a night in his full goalie gear, and he can just go out. Like, it just, again, this was extremely frustrating. Why is he there? Because there's nothing else they can do with him. I saw someone mention this before the season, treating Jeff Carter like a backup or like a goalie situation on back-to-backs, as in pull him out on the second or the whatever, however you want to manage it, and put a 13th forward, carry a 13th forward, and treat him as a back-to-back for a goalie situation. Pull him out, say you're resting him, put him in the booth, and let one of those guys get some ice time. Guys like Hinostroza and Zohorna aren't really at this point gaining anything from being in the AHL. This isn't like a 22-year-old prospect where you want him to get as much ice time at the pro level as possible. So you have him in the AHL to get games and experience. Those guys benefit the big club more than you do the AHL club. It's frustrating, and he's there because there's nothing else they can do with him that doesn't financially hurt them in the long run. You just got to get through this final season and deal with it after that. Question number 5 from Brian again. They're all from Brian this week. Rob Rossi tweeted, "It's been a while since Malkin's had a winger who complements him the way that Riley Smith does. Bringing in Smith was overlooked as part of Dubas' offseason. Did we overlook Riley Smith because of Erik Karlsson?"
Yeah, probably. I mean, when they picked up Riley Smith, hadn't there already been like rumblings of Karlsson? So
he was at that point. Maybe he wasn't directly linked to the Penguins, but it was starting to leak out that Karlsson was going to be traded to a contender, and at that point, we didn't know where he was going to go. But yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit overlooked. The last time Gino had a winger that complimented him like Riley Smith is looking to would be the real deal James Neal, right? Is that probably the last winger he had that was that good?
I don't think that's out of I don't think that's out of the ordinary to say that. I probably agree with you.
Yeah, at least one that stayed healthy. I mean, Zucker was really good with Malkin when he was on the ice. Yeah, so I'd say Neil probably stayed healthy and was productive like that until he left town.
Right. So yeah, maybe a little bit overlooked, but he certainly got all of our attentions now. He's fitting in like that perfect puzzle piece. He has the perfect type of game, I think, to be with Malkin. Malkin is so like offensively creative, and he's completely the driving force on his line. And you just need competent, smart players that can finish essentially. And Riley Smith has got pretty good hockey IQ, and he's got the finishing capability. So maybe a little bit overlooked, but that's not going to last long if you aren't already paying attention. Let's see here. Question number 6 from Brian. Brian thinks that the biggest acquisition the Pens got this offseason is the new scoreboard. That thing is massive in person, and I really hope all 3 of you get to see it in person.
I totally forgot to either tell Brian or message him. I was at the home opener on that Tuesday against the Blackhawks. That was my first time seeing that scoreboard. And yeah, like Snail and Robbie, like Snail, whenever you catch that train over here to Pittsburgh, and Robbie, whenever you make another trek up here, that scoreboard it really is the real deal. Like there is no other way to describe it. It's massive. It is. I don't think anything's going to rival what you see in AT&T Stadium down in Dallas, that Jerry World. That thing is in a league of its own. But this scoreboard is state of the art. There's a reason why FSG decided to, when they looked at the arena, they said, all right, we got to get a new scoreboard in here. That looks like it's going to be money well spent, because I thought it was massive. But even from where I was sitting up top in like 228, I really didn't think it was a detractor in terms of what you saw on the ice. If anything, it helps you for when the Penguins are on the opposite end of the ice and they're not in your section whenever they're on offense. It helps you. It helped me, at least, when I was trying to get a closer glimpse of the action when they were on the opposite end of the ice. So I think it was a great investment, money well spent in terms of arena upgrades. And yeah, whenever you two, Snail, whenever you get into Pittsburgh, and Robbie, whenever you have another game or two in Pittsburgh, that's the first thing you'll notice when you walk in. It is massive. And like I said, I think it's just money well spent, a good arena upgrade to help the fan experience.
Sweet.
Question number 7, as we go back to Robbie here. Question 7 comes from Brian. Do you think Ryan Graves is going to be an adequate replacement for Brian Dumoulin? Prime Dumoulin was so incredibly good and criminally underrated that Brian thinks it will be a tall order to live up to.
It's absolutely going to be a tall order, because it kind of like the last 2 or 3 seasons kind of maybe put it to the back burner a little bit, just how good he was. But if you really go back to especially those cup winning years, just how good he was defensively. Now, I will say, I think Graves might be a little bit better on the offensive side than Dumoulin was. So maybe that outweighs what he isn't defensively. But I think overall, he's going to be maybe not at the peak Dumoulin level, but I think he can be a very, very good Dumoulin replacement. Again, the peak Dumoulin level, if they had a Norris Trophy for defenseman, he would have been definitely a finalist. He was that solid, that important to what the Penguins did, and it's unfortunate he did drop off the way he did, but he will in the long run be remembered fondly in Pittsburgh. I hope Graves can be a partial Dumoulin replacement. If he brings some more offense than Dumoulin did, then maybe he provides the same positives, just with in different areas. So I like what I've seen from Ryan Graves so far, and hopefully the more that him and Letang mesh together, the better he gets. So a pure defenseman Dumoulin replacement at his peak, I don't think he's quite that level because of how good Dumoulin was, but I think he'll be more than adequate as Letang's new partner. Question number 8. Going back to Snail here. Off the ice, Snell and I are flow bros, but on the ice, the real flow bros are Graves and Letang. Graves got a real head of lettuce on him.
That he does. Tanger has unbelievable hair. Like that dude is blessed with genetics. So is Graves. I mean, dude, he's like 6'5", really nice hair, just a tall drink of water. Must be nice. Some guys just have it all. I was trying to think who else. There was someone else I was noticing playing the other day that just has like great hair. Did I message you guys in the group chat? Someone had group chat. Nah, it's neither here nor there. It's never mind. But yeah, I agree. First pair defenseman with great hair. It's just must be nice, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Question 9. Brian asks, this is awesome. Would you rather have the superpower to eat without getting fat or the superpower to eat everything for free?
We are definitely round tabling this question. As I start, I really didn't do too much thinking with this question. For me, it would be eat without getting fat. I mean, that if I could have like an S-tier metabolism to where I wouldn't get fat after everything, all the heavy carb stuff that I love to eat, like Italian food and Chinese food, American Chinese, that is.
Well done steak.
Yeah, well done steak, well done burgers. I mean, all of that stuff. Snail's right. I would absolutely love to devour all of my favorite food groups and not gain a single pound. Just have a chiseled six-pack and just eat cupcakes and pizza and hoagies and pierogies and pasta and all of that stuff. So that's an easy one for me. We'll go to Robbie here. Robbie, what superpower between the two would you rather have?
Easily the latter there. Eat everything without. Oh no, sorry, the former. Eat everything without gaining weight. I believe that if you make good food, you should be paid for it, and I'm completely fine with paying for great food. And I'd love to just be able to, like you see on Instagram and TikTok and all these fantastic, like just all this great food all over the world, and it just all looks so good that I wish I could just eat all of it and never gain a pound. It would be absolutely fantastic. That's the dream, to eat and never get fat. I think when we pose this question to the masses, it would very easily, overwhelmingly be eat and not get fat.
There'd be some hero out there trying to tell you that it's have some control or whatever. Just eat free, have control. Dude, screw that. I'm with you guys though. I would take not getting fat. Dude, it's winter. Old man winter is making his way down, and I mean, I mostly ride my bike as like my main getting around town. I haven't.
That's gotta be fun right now.
Oh yeah, that has
well,
to
it's
be.
just not really happening as much just because it's getting cold and it's rainy. But the bike is being used less, and the frequency of meals and snacks is increasing, and those winter pounds are slowly starting to be put on. So I feel this question way too much. I'm fine with paying for food, but God, if I could skate by, if I had, like you said, Garrett, like a really great metabolism, maybe my answer would be different, but I would take eating without getting fat every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Twice on Sunday, indeed. Question number 10. We're not going to Robbie for question 10. This is a Snail-specific question. Brian wants an update from you, Snail, regarding how your Frasier viewing is going. And Brian notes that the Frasier reboot just premiered, I believe, on Paramount Plus. So you have even more to take in if and when you get done with the original rewatch of Frasier. Are you still watching Frasier, is the question.
No, it's October. Once it hits October 1st, I go into full-on spooky season mode. I try to watch a horror movie a night or a spooky show of some sort. I've been watching The Last of Us recently.
Oh, that is so good. That's so good.
Actually just finished it last night, so
fantastic.
Great series. Have you guys played the game?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did not play part 2. I played part 1.
Yeah. I
Okay,
played
so
both parts
I
of
didn't
it.
make it that I didn't make it that far into the game. I gave up, and then I just watched. I wanted to finish the game before I watched the series. I put it off for months, and it got to be that time of year. I was running out of options for new content to watch, so I started watching it. Haven't been Frasier is on the back burner, but I did see so they made a remake of it.
They rebooted the series with not the entire same cast. Kelsey Grammer, who plays Frasier, he's obviously back as the titular character. I don't know how many other characters are in the reboot. Frasier's on-screen dad passed away years ago.
Yeah.
Again, and Niles's actor, the name is escaping me. David Hyde Pierce.
I believe that's right. Yes.
I think he did not sign on for the reboot, so he's not there. But Frasier, the titular character, is there for the reboot. Again, I don't know who else has carried over from.
Oh, okay, so they just made it like a new season of it, essentially.
Basically, yeah, he's like what 20 years. He'd have to be like 20 years older. Yeah, so basically, yeah.
He's got to be ancient now. He was old in the original one.
He looked old, but I don't think he was that old. Like when they filmed it in the late '90s. I don't know. I would imagine Kelsey Grammer has to be in his early 60s, mid 60s, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Kelsey Grammer is. I was just looking it up actually. Kelsey Grammer is 68.
68. Okay. So
You know what? That lines up considering how he looked in the original Frasier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have not been watching Frasier. Have you guys been watching any like spooky stuff? Any horror movies? Garrett, you don't seem like a horror movie guy to me.
You're right, because I am not. That's not my sister, my older sister, and my brother-in-law. They love that. My older sister loves Halloween. She started decorating for Halloween like early September, and she's had decorations up ever since. So they love that sort of stuff. I don't really do the horror. I will fully admit that I jump scare way too easily. So I don't do the spooky, scary movies or anything like that.
Robbie?
I mean, I've watched like your typical Halloweens, like Halloween. I've seen all the Saws. I don't know if all of them.
There's a ton of Saws.
Yeah,
I just recently learned.
I can't say if I've seen all of them or not. There's like a whole Saw extended universe. So I can't really say that I've seen all of them. Let me see what else. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Sure, like the classics.
Yeah, the classics mostly. I haven't really watched any yet this year though.
I feel it. Yeah, for me it's a daily thing, a nightly thing.
Okay,
So
yeah.
But I will get back to Frasier. I have it's come to mind a couple of times, but gonna have to wait for November to dive back into that show, and I'll update you accordingly, Brian.
Well, fellas, 10 questions in, 10 questions out. We have tackled part 1 of this week's mailbag. Part 2 will be coming at you later this week. Until then, I will continue to deal with these two terrible co-hosts of mine who continue to insult me and take my dignity away from me as they continue to chastise my choice of meat. And I will continue to eat my well-done meat, and I will continue to love eating my well-done meat. But boy, out of context, do not take any of what I just said out of context. I don't know if anyone watches this is going to clip this, but that is just horrendous. It just clicked in my head. I could see, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Snail just pissing his pants right now. But until then, until we get to part 2 later this week, I have been Garrett Bahana for Robbie Noggle for Snail. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag, and we will talk to all of you again very soon.